you tomorrow. So
Are we up?
see them in a few weeks.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Bateman?
Here.
Mr. Goodyear?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Ori?
Here.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Here.
Mr. Ping?
Welcome, everyone. With us tonight, we have our Assistant City Manager, Chris Weinich, Director of Finance, Mark Medler, Clerk of Council, Misty Clark, City Manager, Dave Kennedy, City Solicitor, Joe Braun, Kelsey Richards, our City Engineer, is in the house, Chief of Police, Michael Gabrielson, Assistant Chief, Dan Gangler. We also have our new Director of Human Resources, Julie Robinson. We'll get to her in a moment, and many esteemed members of our police department are here. We also have former council members, Pat Mays. Is that it? You're all alone tonight? Ah, all right. Okay. So welcome, everyone. Let's get started with Lieutenant Corbett. Night is his. I'm gonna assume
First open seat. So.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, City staff. Just want to thank everybody for continuing to highlight the great work that the men and women, the dedicated men and women of the entire city do, and those of the Loveland Police Department. Tonight, we're here to recognize 25 years of service to our community by Lieutenant Kevin Corbett. He's obviously been here quite a while, so I'm sure most everyone knows him. But for those of you that don't, here's a brief overview of the last, well, actually more than 25 years. Kevin graduated the police academy and joined Bethel Police Department in 1993. In 1997, he moved to New Richmond Police Department, where he worked with Mr. Kennedy at that point. And I got to thinking about this earlier. I was interested to see a now and then of the two of you side by side to see what the last 25 plus years has done. I wasn't going to say it. Kevin joined Loveland Police Department in 1999 as a part-time officer and was promoted in 2002 to full-time officer. Over the years, he's been assigned to patrol and criminal investigations, including tenure in the DART, or the Drug Abuse Task Force. He has received several area awards. In 2007, the Claremont County Traffic Officer of the Year. For those of you that know anything about Kevin and when he works, our Clerk of Courts is extremely busy after he's on a shift. 2008 MAD Top Cop recipient, which is for OVI or drunk driving enforcement. 2012 Claremont County Investigator of the Year. In 2013, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant. In 2017, to the rank of lieutenant. Currently, he is in charge of our criminal investigations section. He is in charge of our fleet, our school resource officers, property room, and he manages our Axon in-car and body camera system. Lieutenant Corbett is a valuable member of the agency, valuable member of our command staff, and definitely a valuable member of this community. He definitely has this community and its best interest in heart. One thing I will say about Kevin, he never turns down a workplace challenge that we throw at him. He is always willing to, pick it up and carry the water, whatever we need. So, Kevin, thank you for 25 years of service with LPD, and I will let the mayor continue. So, congratulations. Mm-hmm.
So, Lieutenant, on behalf of Council, just want to thank you for your many years of service to the city. You are our longest-serving lieutenant at this point. And I know Mr. Kennedy says that there are many times that he says, oh, Lieutenant Corbett's helping me with that. So we appreciate all the times that you step in and even go above and beyond what your position description would require. We appreciate your leadership in the community. We're very happy to have you here. I think, do we have?
Yes.
So now we have this. There's more? You don't want
yes,
to?
There's more.
Wait, there's more.
Yes.
Wait. Cool. This? Mm-hmm. That's yours. Is that more?
That's more.
Great. That's kind of cool. You must like that team.
I do like this team.
Cool. I have to show that. Show them what you got.
Roll Tide.
No. Oh, no.
Very cool. Here, I'll hold that for you so you can say a few words. We'll put it here till you're. You know we'll do. Yeah, you have to say a few words.
I'd like to say a few words. So I'll try to be brief on this. I really first want to thank, obviously, council, city manager, mayor for acknowledging, kind of echoing the chief's words, acknowledging the sacrifice that people make in this line of work. You know, the nights, the weekends, the holidays, the phone calls in the middle of the night. It's rough. So it's nice. It's nice to be acknowledged. I would also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Dennis Reese and Tony Burkhart, who were the chief and the administrative sergeant who hired me back in the day. At the time, I was a 20-some-year-old kid looking for a full-time job, and was lucky enough to come to Loveland. So again, without Denny and Tony's vision, I guess I wouldn't be standing here today. But it's funny with Denny Reese, those of you that knew Denny Reese, Denny liked to tell stories and Denny liked to give you advice. And one of the things that he gave me advice on was that he said that, Kevin, he said, don't wish your life away. It's going to go quicker than you can imagine. And I was like, of course, again, in my 20s, I'm like, what does he know, right? So looking back on it, today is actually the 25th anniversary of my employment here. And looking back on it, it is amazing how quickly those 25 years have went. It just seems like it was, 3 or 4 months ago. But here we are. And I look back on those 25 years, and I'm telling you, I do truly feel blessed and honored to have served this community for as long as I have, and to have had the opportunity to work with some of the most talented people in this line of work. It far exceeded what I expected when I came to work here. Along the way, I've made some great relationships. One of which is my good friend Savalas Kid over here, who I met as a young detective when he was an evidence technician for Ohio BCI. Savalas has been a tremendous friend and mentor to me over the years. I could go on and on and on. I also have to acknowledge my wife, who puts up with a lot of things that go on in our household. But he's always been the voice of reason and telling me, knock it off and look at it from this standpoint. So I have to acknowledge her as well. But the one thing that all of this has in common, with the exception of meeting my wife, is it's the city of Loveland. And this really is, it sounds cliche and you hear it a lot, but this really is a wonderful community that is far ahead of a lot of the departments and a lot of the communities around us. We really do have something special here, and I'm very proud and humbled to be a part of it. So thank you very much for your time. And
congratulations. Thanks. And
sure.
Congratulations.
Hey, thanks for those remarks. No, that was good. Came from the heart.
It was great. Wait till your 50th.
Yeah,
wait till your 50th.
Picture time.
Is this a council in the back situation?
Council in the back.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a council in the back situation.
These are my favorite.
How do I always get behind? It's amazing. It's
These
every
are
time.
always my favorite. Our little
Short
heads
guy
in the back.
Oops, sorry.
This is lazy. You're just being lazy. Kevin, before we stop, do you want your wife and your friend in?
Yeah.
Oh, come on!
Yeah, no, it's a good one. The family picture's always nice.
We'll get out of here. I think we'll go.
Hey.
Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
How many days? I'm on the verge of
Yep.
I mean, cool. Heavy. Yeah. That's okay. Thank you. All right. You're twice. I got you. All right. Then we'll blow out. All right. Julie Robinson and Dave.
It's pretty quick.
No.
So, I think it's only fitting that Kelsey's here tonight because I was just thinking the amount of skilled people that I get to work with every day here at City Hall, Chris and Mark and Misty, and I don't know how if you could put more of an icing on the cake than who we're getting ready to swear in to office today as our new Director of Human Resources. Julie was working with the city 4 years ago. She left us to go to Claremont County. She was a part-time position here with the city, and she left. And she was extremely skilled when she left us. And those 4 years, she got even more and more deeper into all the intricate details of HR geek world that she is. And for us to get her back, it is really a feather in the cap for this city to have somebody with that kind of skills and a hometown person too. It's sort of like, that baseball player that finally got to come back home and play for his hometown. Of course, didn't work real well for Joey Votto, did it? But yeah, so let's go with that. But I can't tell you enough how much of excitement it was. We had a little Monday morning. We had donuts, and you can always tell when you bring in people from all the other departments who just got wind that there was not so much the donuts, but that Julie was back, and we had this room full on Monday morning. And what she brings to this city, not only to the staff, but just the professionalism that we have around us with this group of people, it's really an honor. So I just want to introduce Julie and let Kathy go ahead and swear her into office.
Yeah, that's all we've heard about since the news was announced. How excited everybody is to have you back. So, welcome back, and lots to live up to. All right, are you ready?
Yeah.
I state your name.
I, Julie Robinson,
Solemnly swear that I will
solemnly swear that I will
support the Constitution of the United States,
support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter and ordinances
and the Charter and ordinances
of the City of Loveland,
of the City of Loveland,
and will obey the laws thereof,
and will obey the laws thereof,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of Director of Human Resources,
the duties of Director of Human Resources,
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Welcome.
Thank you. This is a lot of pressure. I really just want to say I'm really grateful to be given the opportunity to come back, this time with bringing some new skills that I learned while I was the HR director for the Claremont County Public Library System, which I'm going to put my plug in for the libraries. It's a wonderful organization, and they really let me grow, and I'm really glad to be coming back to my hometown and put those skills to use. So thank you all for this opportunity.
Welcome back.
Glad you're here. Can't wait to work with you. Picture.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Your photo.
Here we go.
welcome home.
Photo.
I love seeing them.
Favorite thing. All right, congratulations.
You pass that down. Thank you. Just pass it down.
All right, so first on persons appearing, we do have a National Alliance on Mental Illness. Come on up. You want me to do the proclamation first, or you want to speak first? You want to speak first? Say what you're about, then I'll do it. How about that, right?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. My name is Katie Harper. I am the Executive Director of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, of Southwest Ohio. Here locally, we serve Hamilton, Claremont, Warren, and Clinton counties, and we provide education, support, advocacy, and public awareness for individuals living with mental illness, as well as their families. We are the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization, but we are also a local organization, a separate 501c3 that is able to really serve the needs of our community rather than the larger national agenda, if you will. We are working here in our schools locally. We recently moved last year. We're coming up on 1 year actually into Loveland as our kind of home base. Like I said, we serve 4 counties and Loveland sits on 3 of them. So we had been in a kind of nondescript office park for many years. We just moved, like I said, a year ago into Loveland. It's been really wonderful. We've had a lot of opportunities since we moved into this space to meet with businesses, to do mental health education, and we've been really just pleased to be here. I grew up in Loveland. I am a graduate of Loveland High School, and I do this work because I lost my dearest, oldest friend to suicide in 2011. He was also a graduate of Loveland, and it is... Sorry. It is deeply emotional to be in this space and to have the city acknowledge Suicide Prevention Month in the space in the area where we grew up together. So I'm deeply proud to do this work, and I thank all of you for acknowledging the importance of it.
And just as a reminder, you're located in the building up on West Loveland where Cancer Free Kids is.
Yeah,
Right.
Old Methodist Church.
All right. Okay. Whereas mental health is part of overall health and 1 in 5 adults experience a mental health problem in any given year. And whereas approximately 1/2 of chronic mental illness begins by the age of 14 and 3/4 by age 24, and long delays, sometimes decades, often occur between the time symptoms first appear and when individuals get help. And whereas suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the United States and the 2nd leading cause among young adults, and 90% of people who die by suicide had shown symptoms of a mental health condition, according to interviews with family, friends, and medical professionals. And whereas early identification and treatment can make a difference in successful management of mental illness and recovery, and it is important to maintain mental health and learn the symptoms of mental illness in order to get help when it is needed. And whereas every citizen and community can make a difference in helping end the silence and stigma that for far too long has surrounded mental illness and discouraged people from getting help. Public education and civic activities can encourage mental health and help improve the lives of individuals and families affected by mental illness. And whereas we endeavor to shine a light on suicide prevention and mental illness and fight stigma, provide support, educate the public, and we place our full support behind those who work in the mental health field, namely our local partner, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Southwest Ohio. Now, therefore, I, Kathy Bailey, by the power vested in me as mayor of the city of Loveland, and on behalf of our city council and residents, do hereby proclaim September 2024 as Suicide Prevention Month in the city of Loveland. And thank you for all that you do. All right, Tori Morrison.
So I think I've been here before and met most of you. I just want to share a few things with you. As Kathy said, suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death in 10 to 14-year-old kids. I just spoke to the middle school teachers today, and that's exactly the group of kids that they have, 10 to 14 years old. For the first time that I could find in the year 2022, which is the most recent time that we have statistics for, there were 21,156 homicides, 49,476 suicides, twice as many, more than twice as many. And yet that's not what we talk about on a daily basis. We talk about shootings, we talk about homicides, and I'm not saying that they're not important, but clearly we have a problem in this country when there are more than double the suicides. And people like NAMI and people like my friend here, David Arlano, with the 988 initiative, we're trying to make a difference. Slowly but surely, one day at a time, talking about it and bringing it to the forefront. And I thank you guys for always being there and supporting us.
Do you want to say something? No?
All right, so I just want to thank Tori. I mean, she's shared her personal story in the past, and anyone that's been around in Loveland for any length of time is well aware of what occurred, but also well aware of all your efforts on behalf of trying to stop this from happening to other families. So that is not easy to do. So thank you for all that you do. So we'll have Laura Ferrer come up. Where'd she go? There you are. And then we'll, if it's all right, we'll get a picture of all of you, because it doesn't do us much good if we don't get this out on social media, right? So after you speak, let's all do a picture, okay? Thank you, Tori.
Hello, my name is Laura Ferrer, and I am a parent. I have 3 children. 2 are at Loveland, and 1 is down south at Summit Country Day. A high schooler. The reason why I'm here tonight, I also sit on the Mint PTSA, and with everything that these 2 wonderful women and all the things that they do have spoken about this evening, I wanted just to call to your attention what we're doing positively, trying to impact parents and families preemptively before it gets to a point of crises. So I shared with you today, I sit on the Social Emotional Wellness Committee alongside Tara Dale, who is the board member for Mint PTSA, Catherine Siebert, who is a parent coach, myself. I work on NEST. I'm on the advisory board for NEST and work with Evangeline Duvall, who's also going to join our committee to help any child in the NEST group that is also having some difficulties. But I shared with you just a year at a glance some of the things that we are discussing on our community and our committee to help reach out to the community. So if you look at the packet that I gave you, on the very bottom, there's monthly planning sessions that we're having to talk about strong self, school, strong school. So strong self, strong school. And we just brought in Mint PTSA, David Knapp, the principal of Loveland Middle School, recommended Nick Jackson, I Am Speak Love. He's a national speaker, and actually internationally. He's done a few speaking occasions internationally. Nick Jackson is I Am Speak Love. We brought him to Loveland Intermediate and Loveland Middle School to talk about his whole approach of hearing, listening, validating, incorporating that empathy for all children to start at school, because Loveland Schools does a fantastic job. The schools, the teachers, they do such a nice job. The principals, the assistant principal, Mr. Hart of Loveland Intermediate School, they do such a great job. But I think it really goes far beyond. Like I said, I'm a parent, but I was an educator for 15 years. And it really does start at home, and it starts with the family. And so what can we do? Obviously, I love here meeting the NAMI representative, and I know Tori Morrison very well, and their missions and what they do to help children and families is outstanding. But I wanted to call to your attention that when there is rising needs in the homes here in Loveland, some of the national things that I pulled off the NAMI website goes back to 8%, and I won't share them all because I wanted to share them with you and just called your attention. But like on the 4th page, it talks about youth with private insurance that did not cover mental or emotional problems. So it says nationally, 8.5% of youth who are covered under private insurance do not have coverage for mental or emotional difficulties, totaling over 1 million youth. And here in Ohio, it's 8%. So that's an alarming statistic. And while I'm really glad to know that NAMI is here, and I plan to work alongside her and get her plugged in as well with our mental wellness committee, I just think there's so much that we can do to help children, especially at those ages that Tori Morrison, highlighted today, that 10 to 14 years old. And it's just getting younger and younger. So I just wanted to be here today to let you know that the middle school, intermediate school, PTSA is well aware of the crisis, and we're working alongside Tori Morrison. Tori didn't mention it because I'm sure she has a plethora of things that she has under her belt that she's working on. But she started a program at the high school, and now it's brought down to intermediate school and middle school, called Ben's Way, named after her son, Ben Morrison. And to highlight children who are showing empathy, who are showing compassion, who really, and don't do it because, someone's watching. They're doing it naturally because that's the core of who they are. And I just love that program so much. And I commend Tori for putting that in motion. And I'm very excited for the potential of all of us coming together, the teachers, continuing with the administrators, counselors, the psychologists. We just have outstanding professionals at the intermediate school, middle school. And, I just wanted to end with, everyone is touched with mental health. My children went through it post-COVID and continue to have their struggles. I'm lucky enough, blessed, to be able to give my children the resources that they need right when they need it. But there are so many children that are living here in Loveland that may be under crisis and need that actual support. So I'm here to share that I really want to work alongside all the professionals to help all children in Loveland who might be experiencing mental health crises. So thank you again, and thank you for your time.
Forward.
Yes, ma'am.
I will.
It's a lot of phones, Dave.
Oh, I know. I had to take pictures.
All right. We didn't have anyone sign up for open forum, so next is the minutes from the September 10th, 2024 meeting. Is
Move to approve as written.
there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Goodyear?
I abstain.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. Mr. Weinich.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In 2023, the City of Loveland was awarded a $745,000 grant through the Community Grant Program, which was spearheaded or ran through Congressman Greg Landsman's office. We were successful in getting that grant. As part of that, the way they administered the community grants is depending on the type of project, they were run by different federal agencies. With ours being a water main project, the Cherokee Drive water main project, it's being run through the United States EPA. And they have, as part of their criteria, several additional requirements for any of these projects that are funded. Some of them include we have to do a water resource delineation, archaeological literature review, a phase 1A site investigation, and we have to coordinate with the Historic Preservation Office of the state of Ohio. With that, our engineer who designed this project, Choice One Engineering, they needed to utilize a subconsultant, Patriot Engineering, for this environmental work. It's a little specific. They're just better suited for it than Choice One. So what they're asking for is an additional $16,650 in an amendment to their existing contract. With these last few steps, we'll be able to get this project out the door. This was, in a sense, delayed due to these requirements. These were requirements we were not aware of here at the city until the grant was essentially handed out. No one really knew what all was going to entail, what was going to be required as part of that grant funding. But looking at it, $16,000 to receive $745,000 makes a lot of sense. So with that said, there's not a whole lot of options with this as far as direction forward. We really need to finish this out and get this out the door for bid. During the fiscal impact on this, during 2024 budgeting cycle, we did budget $190,000 for engineering, and currently, with this additional fee, we will total $98,960, which is still a little over $91,000 still under budget. So we're still well within our means for this project. So with that, if there's any questions, but we would make a recommendation to council that this resolution would be passed.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, Mr. Bateman?
Just curious about the requirements you listed: archaeological literature review, historic preservation office coordination. Is a lot of this stuff fall under the bucket of? I mean, you mentioned that it was sort of brought on by the grant funding, but is it the state of Ohio sort of doing due diligence that they're funding something that's going to pass archaeological muster, historic preservation? Is it really just sort of like an audit of those kinds of categories?
Yeah, and it's actually pushed down from the congressional budget. So the U.S. it's more from the feds,
okay,
more than the state, but it goes down. So some of the clearinghouse is the state. These are, in my opinion, based on these types of projects that are very cut and dry, like a water main installation in an existing corridor, these are boxes that have to be checked, and it's part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Mr. Ping?
Just a question. The contract that's from Patriot Engineering, that their client is the other engineer that is not the city of Loveland. It's the other engineering.
Correct. They will be a sub-consultant underneath Choice One Engineering. So it would be an amendment to the contract with Choice One Engineering, and they are doing it simply as a pass-through. There is no markup on it.
But the terms and conditions Patriot has would not apply to the city.
We are not signing that one. I simply put that in as reference for what they gave Choice One. The terms and conditions will be the Choice One agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Just on the wetlands part, I mean, this isn't existing in a wetlands area, and there are no streams, are there? So that should be a checkbox item, I think.
Correct. A lot of this is tabletop exercise rather than, so some of this, if this was a true green site sort of thing, a lot of this exploration would be done more field type work. That's why, in reality, $16,000 for the tabletop exercise, it's a fair price, but it is mainly tabletop and more research based than anything else.
Any further questions or comments? All right, read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to amend its agreement with Choice One Engineering for professional design services related to Cherokee Drive water main project.
Thank you. Call the roll.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Resolution 72 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Weinich?
Following approval on July 9th, 2024 from City Council, Public Works was authorized to dispose of several pieces of property that they no longer had any useful life or being used by Public Works. Our Assistant Public Works Director, Sean Hartness, headed that up and got all these on Gov Deals. And with that, we essentially sold four pieces of equipment, a street sweeper, two 2004 GMC Sierra 1500s, and a brush chipper. From those proceeds, we were able to bring in $15,164 among those four. And as was talked about during that meeting, we were looking to earmark these funds for a new work truck for Public Works. Director Wisby, he identified that they're in need of 3 trucks over the next 3 years, and to kind of get that moving along, this was a good kickstart to get it in this year. We went out along with Scott and Thomas Doman. They went out and kind of looked. So a lot of times you can do state purchasing contracts. The problem with state purchasing contracts, they're not what they used to be prior to COVID. There's a lot of long lead times on a lot of it, and the prices are not. They're very comparable to what a lot of the local businesses are offering, anyways. So Thomas Doman and Scott, they went out and solicited some pricing from a couple dealerships, and one of them that we were able to find a vehicle that suited us pretty well was from McCluskey Chevrolet. This is a Chevy 2024 Chevy Silverado, which is basically, it's a plain white truck. What we need. It's not like a huge, it's not a snowplow truck. It's simply what we need for what their needs suit. The total cost of that truck will be $44,670. With the proceeds of $15,164, that'll bring basically what we're pulling out of general fund down to $29,506, and our expectation or what we're going to do is pull that from 5 different funds, because as you know, Public Works, what we're showing here is sanitary and environmental fund, street maintenance fund, Parks and Leisure, Stormwater, and Water Capital Improvement Fund. All 5 of those are, funds that Public Works directly works in. So if we pull them all out of there, basically we're taking around $5,900 from each of those funds, and we have all of those funds available. So with that, we would, the policy options for council, obviously we can defer this, like we've kind of been doing, quite frankly, with Public Works, which is not something we really would recommend. We can either defer it, go ahead and approve it as we have it shown, or we can continue to look for suitable trucks and come up with some other pricing. But like I said, we did some pretty good homework on this, and I think we're getting a very fair price for this truck. So with that, I'll turn it over if there's any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments? All right, read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a purchase agreement with McCluskey Chevrolet for the purchase of a 2024 Chevrolet Silverado.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Resolution 73 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Weinich.
All right, it's that time of year for us here at City Hall to submit for OPWC grant applications. Each year, the city traditionally submits 1, 2, or 3, depending on the year, applications to OPWC to complete needed infrastructure projects. The funding from both the State Capital Improvement Program, or SCIP, and Local Transportation Improvement Program, LTIP, is administered by the OPWC. So we typically apply for SCIP grants. Every once in a while we'll go for LTIP grants, but this go around we're going to be going after SCIP grants and loans. And we're in OPWC District 2. So even though we're in 3 counties, we do submit through Hamilton County. So it is a very competitive process. A lot of applications will come in. Through the SKIP program, they offer grants, 0% interest loans, or a combination thereof. We've been very successful here at the city. Prior to myself coming here, our previous city engineer, Cindy Kloffenstein, she did a great job getting a lot of projects funded. Specifically last year, she got $955,200 for the Cherokee Drive water main project, which was very successful. And this year, with our new city engineer, Kelsey Richards, she's pulling together these applications, which are very time consuming. They take a lot of forethought in how you're going to present your argument on why we have a good project. So with that said, the applications are due September 27th, 2024, and we've identified 2 projects to be submitted. West Loveland Avenue Improvements Phase 2 and East Loveland Avenue Improvements Phase 2, and I'll talk a little bit about both of those projects. But we believe our priority project will be the West Loveland Avenue Improvements Phase 2 project. This is a project that will essentially go from about 3rd Street on East Loveland down along West Loveland to Carl Brown Way. So on West Loveland from 3rd all the way down to Carl Brown. The impetus, what kind of spurred this project, not only the master plan that you all have adopted for the Loveland streetscape, obviously that's, the big trigger is that we want to get that whole area up to kind of the standards that we've identified in that streetscape plan. But also Cincinnati MSD, as you saw with the East Loveland Phase 1 project, they were running sanitary sewer main through that corridor, and they need to pick up from basically 3rd Street, a little north of 3rd Street, pick up from there and go all the way to the bridge over O'Bannon. They have, that's their ultimate goal. Now they told us, we can work with you all on a project if that's what you want. So we did identify that, okay, you guys need to come through. So we want to pull together something that makes sense. So what we've identified is essentially a project with storm sewer upgrades, the streetscape improvements, and water main replacement, all within the corridor of that MSD project. So we're going to pull this application together with MSD as a local. Basically, there'll be a local match on this. So with our storm sewer improvements, we went through and we televised all of our storm sewers, and we identified catch basins and minimal storm sewer improvements that need to be made. We will upgrade the streetscape plan, so all the concrete sidewalks will be upgraded to the new standard, which has the brick inlay in it. And then we will also install tree wells and trees, the Silva cells that were identified in the streetscape plan. Those will all be newly upgraded. And then we will also upgrade a section of the water main on West Loveland, which will allow us, if we do a short extension off of Carl Brown, it'll allow us to eliminate or abandon the existing main, which has been identified as probably the oldest water main in the city, which will alleviate or prevent any future issues with water main breaks there. To my knowledge, it's early 1900s, that water main. That is kind of what I've been told. So it's definitely a water main that needs attention. With the project, I'll kind of talk a little bit about the funding of the project. The total project cost will be $2,487,420. And with that, we're presenting that the city share, and follow me on this, the city share will be $1,612,000. Of that, we're submitting for $500,000 in ARC grants, and then we have $873,000 as an MSD contribution, which is the sanitary sewer part, and then we would have 89,000 coming out of our WRM fund for the water main improvements, and then 150,000. I'm rounding off numbers here. 150,000 out of the general fund. The reason it's going to show when we apply, it's going to show it as a city cost share of 1.6 million. Is we can't right now we can't show that ARC funding because it hasn't been basically given to us yet. So we have to show it as a 1.6. But as those other dollars come in, we will take that. Basically, it will contribute right to the project. So we have to show our city share as 1.6, which will help us score a lot better on the project itself. I'll kind of stop there. I want to stop there before I go into East Loveland because this is the more complicated project. So I'll stop there and take any questions on West Loveland, and then I'll talk very briefly about East Loveland.
Anybody have any questions? Yes, Mr. Bailey.
It sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
So essentially what you're saying is that it's similar to what has gone down on East Loveland over the past year. We would be in a similar situation to sort of continue that through to the West Loveland Bridge.
Correct.
But instead of the three parties, we would be the controlling party from a. This would be our project.
That's correct.
In our backyard, it would be something that we would, and MSD would be sort of the partner.
Correct. We are utilizing MSD as part of the local share. So they're not putting in the application. They're not asking for any grant money out of this. So they are 100% local share. And to talk a little bit about the projects of how East Loveland went and how this would go. The funding would become available July 1st of 2025 should we be selected. That puts us in a very tight window to get this project completed prior to 2026's sesquicentennial type of events. It's doable, but it will be a very tight project time-wise. So it will have to be run on it'll have to be run very tight. So I just want to put that out there for council to understand that it will be we have to start construction July 1st.
Well, that's kind of where I was going.
Well, July 5th.
Was mainly I recognize that when you make such a significant improvement up the street, that's only a matter of time before that's going to continue. And both of these, the East Loveland Phase 2 and West Loveland Phase 2, kind of represent different aspects of that project, but it's continuations of those. My concern is in the timing, as you're talking about. But I also recognize that this is an opportunity to get feedback. So even if we weren't going to get this, which might be a good thing, we might be learning how better to apply in the future because it's needed. And we definitely want to have the infrastructure be, for lack of a better term, matching, so that it's contributing to the greater service of the system. The other concern I have, and the question I guess around this is there a world where we don't get this funding and MSD would like to continue doing this project and they do this project on their own? Or are we committed to being a partner in this at some point?
We are committed to being a partner in this. We have had discussions with Cincinnati MSD that basically say, hey, if this doesn't go well, this application process, we got a lot going on. We don't want to tear this up twice. So they have told us that they would push this project off essentially.
Okay, waiting for us to get it so that we can incorporate it into the larger improvement. I
will say this, that they're willing to wait until 2027 essentially, but I would say that even if we're not willing to commit then in 2027, I can't say they won't do it in 2027.
Okay. So we've got this window where we're looking to try to fund this, and MSD is on board as our partner.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, and I think the other timing of this is 26 is going to be Riverside, right?
Correct.
And 27 is going to be one of the phases on Love Madeira.
Hopefully, yes. But
Pushing
Riverside is a.
good either.
I just want to be sensitive to.
You're
I
absolutely.
understand, but
Yes.
we can't be blocking all roads.
Infrastructure improvements are important and needed, and when we have the opportunity to make those improvements, we should. But yeah, it's all about planning and timing and being flexible up to a point, but also recognizing when it's time to shift things around. So I certainly trust this process. It's worked out for us in the past. I think my hesitancy is maybe a little PTSD based in what's going on East Loveland. But I think that's been a great project, and as we're hitting the home stretch there, you can really see how much of an improvement it's become. So
I think the benefit in this, or the difference in this project, is we are not replacing water main along the whole stretch of this. The water main's actually going to be replaced essentially in the sidewalk. So the extension from Carl Brown will actually be in the sidewalk. So one of the big issues the contractor had was it had to be designed the way it was, but the two mains were very close. So you essentially had to you struggled to keep a lane open. I think in a project like this, it would not be a road closure. You would do it, correct.
Right.
You would have, you would have lane restrictions, but it would not be a road closure like the East Loveland project.
Right. Okay. Thank you for
Andy, I just want to add one thing. When Chris and I, when the three of us went through the application, the city has the option to basically check a box that say, if we don't score high enough to get a grant, we would accept a loan. Because the way we look at it, this is its time.
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, the city would have to make the number one priority, Riverside Drive, at a certain point in time. So if the city gets an option where they don't score well, somebody would get a call that said, would you be willing to take 50% grant and 50% into a zero interest loan? So Chris checked that box, because this is an opportunity that we wouldn't want to miss.
Yeah.
Well, my last comment on that. I see them as, from a sequential standpoint, certainly, but I don't necessarily see them as from a disruption standpoint along the same lines. Mainly because you don't have people trying to hang out and get ice cream on Riverside, whereas you've got the pedestrian and all that. So again, I trust the decision-making process. It's just one of those things where I want to think holistically about where this goes if we were to be approved right away.
Right.
So thank you for the conversation.
Mr. Ping.
I had a question I think has already been asked and answered, in a sense that if we don't get these grants, this is a significant amount of money. We're saying that by approving this, we're signing on that we're going to borrow money to do this project if we don't get the grant. Is that correct?
That would come to us. Yes.
Right now, what we've said is the way we've done the application is we're asking for $874,000 in grant money at this point. We have checked a box that basically says, and it behooves you to do it because you do it because you're showing that we are interested. This is a serious project for us. So what would happen is if they would say, all right, we're willing to give you half of that in grant, half of that in loan, it would be, we would bring that back to council. We are not committing to a loan at this point. We're simply committing, and Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what we would do.
Yes.
So we're not committed to signing. Keep in mind, there's an agreement. Even if you do get funded for grant money, if all of a sudden we say we don't have the $239,000, because that's essentially what it comes down to, $239,000. Let's say something happens, you still don't have to. So we're not committing to anything today. We're simply committing to the city manager being able to submit the applications.
And we would, if we take this loan, which Chris would bring back to the city, we're living true to our commitment that we would not be taking any additional debt service for our water fund, because the WMR fund is able to fund that. So the loan proceeds, if the city does take the loan proceeds, none of that would be paid from the water fund. It would be paid probably equally from general and stormwater. So we would still maintain our commitment to the city that we would not be taking any additional debt for a water main if we do that, because the WMAR, Chris has got the WMAR covering all of the water no matter what happens.
Correct.
Vice Mayor.
And that would be a 0%.
Correct. It's a 0%.
And then I just assume communications have been opened or will be in connection with our retailers and businesses, because I can see the business disruption is significant.
Yeah, as you would expect, we've already, in passing with several business owners, mentioned this project, and it's, as you would expect, no time is a good time, because it's kind of funny, because I said early on, I was talking, I said, what about, like, I'm trying to think about the construction season and stuff. I go, what about November, December? And I'm like, well, I forgot this is Loveland. They got Christmas stuff, so no time is a good time. I mean, there's a good window, January to March, but other than that, it's tough. Right. So I don't, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough.
When it's funded, isn't it?
So it's been your experience. It's not a negative to say we would take the loan, and then they look at that and say, "Fine, let's just give them half." That doesn't work that way.
No, not typically. And Kelsey and I and Dave are pretty excited about this application. Honestly, I wasn't too confident until we started getting the numbers in from everyone, and everyone's contributions, and how it laid out. But I think it's. I don't have the percentage, but we are way over the typical local share because of assuming the 500,000 from the ARC and that 873 from MSD is considered local. So we're like 60 some percent, if I remember correctly, local share, which is typically we only put in 11%. So this is a very favorable application in my opinion.
Okay, we do have our city engineer here. Seems like we should ask some difficult technical questions about this. Mr. Hart?
Can you talk, and we started to go down the road of the disruption to the town. Can we just kind of dig into that? Like you said, no road closures. Obviously, because with the bridge, we can't get any kind of truck that way. And
right.
I assume this takes longer than 35 days to complete.
Yep.
So we're going to have school buses that are going to be maneuvering through there as they always do.
Yes.
So can you kind of go through an anticipated traffic sequence, how that looks through there?
Without the design being completed, it's going to be kind of difficult for me to venture to guess. I envision, if I had to guess based on these types of projects, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be down to one lane. I can't venture to guess exactly how it would look, Councilman Hart, at this point. I really need to see the design, specifically the sanitary. That's the one that's going to dictate what the traffic looks like. Everything else, the water, the storm, those are kind of on the peripherals of the roadway. So that I have no concerns with. As far as traffic flow and whatnot, it's really going to be that sanitary. The farther we can push the sanitary out of the roadway through design, which we will push, the better the traffic situation for construction will be. So it's really going to be how far can we push sanitary outside of the roadway.
Okay. How does the railroad play into all this?
The railroad plays a permitting factor. We have to, for sanitary, that's why I believe the sanitary cost was so high, in my opinion. I believe they're anticipating a bore underneath the railroad. So I think that'll be done by bore. So there will be if that's my assumption, that's what the plan is. There will be no disruption to the rail or anything like that. But we will.
So
Huh?
I know the railroad's not super friendly.
Well, actually, Mr. Kennedy's made some inroads there, so we actually have a decent relationship now. So he's been good.
He's a really nice guy. He really is, Mike.
I know he is. Yeah.
And then I guess the last piece of that is the last question with all this and the streetscape improvements and all that stuff. The mound, as it were, that goes where the bike path crosses.
Yes.
We're talking about taking that out as part of the signalization and redevelopment through there.
So that's being done. So that was a project that was put on the capital budget for this year. When we started down that road, the design involved us saying what we need for getting people across and working with ODOT. There came a time a little bit before I think I came on board that we had to get the railroad involved, because all the preemption for all the crossings, they all need to talk to. So there were some upgrades that the Ohio Rail Commission was interested in doing at the same time. So that project, though we haven't seen any increased costs for us, we've kind of brought on another partner halfway through that design, being Ohio Rail Commission. Those plans are being wrapped up. That is anticipated to be done in spring of next year. That's a separate.
The signalization of the
Yes, sir. Yep.
The roadway itself. We were talking about leveling that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be deferred to this project.
Yes, that would be part of this project.
We'd just be doing the signalization. If you recall, when the Ohio Rail Commission came on, you guys approved receiving a grant as a pass-through to the Ohio Rail Commission, because what they recognized was that the boxes here all need to be replaced out. The traffic signals on the bike trail crossing will be synchronized with the traffic signals on Carl Brown. For example, you wouldn't be getting a red light at the traffic signals for the vehicular traffic, excepting when Carl Brown is going a certain way. Well, if the railroad isn't speaking with the telemetry system, it isn't going to work. So they recognize that. So at the end of the day, it delayed the project, but it made the project better, and it didn't add any cost to the city. So the signal boxes will all be exchanged out. There was no room in those signal boxes to operate the existing traffic signals plus the railroad and the new signal that would be coming on. So that all caused it to be delayed, but it'll make it a much better process. And it really will. Chris and I just reviewed the traffic heads that the people will see, because there'll be signals for the people coming across the bike trail, and we doubled it up.
Correct.
Felt that it was
correct.
necessary.
It'll be you're going to see a bike signal and a pedestrian signal in essence. So we did double it up because we anticipated confusion or not, people needing both of them. So anyway, but I didn't answer. So to answer your question, I missed it, but that whole elevation issue will be taken care of as part of this West Loveland Phase 2 project. So it will be done as part of that.
And my last question is probably the hardest one is, do you have any idea how long something like this could take?
Yeah.
Never, and I would never hold you.
No, I understand. I understand that. I think we would have to put a project out for the only way this will work is if the construction schedule is July 1st or July 5th, 2025 till end of March. We would have to be done end of March in 2026 because we have a bunch of things beginning to ramp up for that sesquicentennial, I would say from April on. I think that's the construction schedule that we would need to have. So let me put it this way: you can get a lot of things done in the time frame you want. You may pay a premium. So if you want a job done in 6 months rather than 9 months, you can put it out with that construction schedule, and it's doable. But you may pay. You're going to pay for it. So it's possible. So I would say the fastest, in my opinion, is the end of March 2026.
Okay.
Mr. Rory.
So, Mr. Wine, I'm assuming that most of this work is going to be on this side of West Loveland, the city side.
The city side, it'll be both sides.
It'll be both sides.
Yep.
So we're basically taking out all the sidewalks from Third down.
Yep. Well, we're already up to the railroad on our side, the city side. So if you go out there, you'll see that brick inlay concrete's already been done to the railroad there. So it's on the other side. We got all of it, and then everything else on the city side. It all follows, that 2022 master plan for the downtown streetscape. It all incorporates what was envisioned as part of that master plan.
But we are definitely going to be down to one lane.
Oh yeah. I don't see how it won't be one lane.
Is that from July until March?
No, no, not necessarily.
Like that.
Not necessarily.
We don't know yet.
It's hard to say what. So keep in mind we haven't done design yet. So that's a component of this that, as with all projects that we submit for OPWC, local share, we do commit 100% local share for the design. So that would be, that's upfront costs. That's always been the case. We never put in for any engineering costs. So yeah, I can't tell you exactly until we get those designs nailed down.
Yes, Mr. Goodyear.
Going back to the interplay with MSD, and I mean, I certainly understand Mr. Bateman's point, and I don't live near where the construction is going on right now in East Loveland. I understand the concern about that. But am I correct? At some point, MSD is going to come through regardless of what we do.
Correct.
Right? Whether it's 25 or 27, they're going to come through. They're going to destroy the sidewalks. They're going to do their business, and then we've got to deal with it, right?
Yeah, at some point they have to finish that loop or that connection for themselves because they've identified that as a bottleneck in their system, is what I've been told.
And go ahead.
The only thing I would add is your point is yes, and we would not be able to capitalize on using it towards local match, which is what the city is trying to do. Is what Cindy put together up on East Loveland. Right. You're losing an opportunity to take another entity spending money in your town, and the city doing what we like to do, which is use it to our advantage when it comes to grant funding. Right. Because you're right, once they come through, if they're coming through, and we don't, that it is what it is. So.
And so I guess what I'm hearing, I'll make sure I understand this correctly. While yes, it's going to be a major disruption next year to do this, if you try and do it, if you wait for MSD to come in another year, it's going to overlap on some other really major projects. It's going to be infinitely worse to wait.
Yeah, Riverside Drive, just kind of as a look down into the future. Riverside Drive is a must to get funded from OPWC. It is going to be a very expensive project, and if we don't get OPWC funding and don't go all in that year that we need to do it, I don't see the project happening. I mean, we have to get the OP. So to answer that question, whenever Riverside's ready to go, which it probably will be 2026 for OPWC funding, we have to go all in and not worry about any other OPWC funded projects at that point, because it'll be a large price tag.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Ping.
Just a couple other things. One, this is getting way out in front of everything I know, but just because it's mentioned in here. At the time we did the master plan in 22, I don't think we had yet really talked about a lot of the streetscaping with trees and that kind of thing. Certainly, we want to make sure that whatever we're doing fits in with the treescaping and so forth for the types of trees we're getting, that they're appropriate and so forth. But the other thing, just to go back to what we've all been talking about, it's obvious that we've had a difficult summer. We've had some very unhappy residents. We've had some problems. There's no way of beating around the bush on that. And we just don't want to repeat that. I think that anything we can do in the design process to impress upon the designers that this is a huge pain point for us. The thing I would hate to see is for us to, and I want to clarify, I'm not saying let's spend a ton of money to accomplish this, but at the same time, a lot of times there's that low-hanging fruit that for a few $1,000s more, we can cut a week off or that kind of thing. I think the community has made very clear that on these major arteries, there's not a lot of tolerance for, taking months to do a project that could have been done in weeks. had it been structured differently. And again, I'm not saying that as a reflection on the city administration or on the engineers or anything. I think I'm saying it more from a standpoint that we have learned a valuable lesson that we do not want to have this happen again. And so there's a lot of concern and trepidation about especially so quickly taking on another project that has a very dangerous deadline looming of the sesquicentennial plans and all the other projects we have going. So again, to reiterate what others have already said, I think that's a very important consideration as part of this. And so if we can get the engineer when they're designing to understand that, and that is a really critical point for us, I think that would be a valuable thing for them to understand going in, rather than it to be kind of a, oh, by the way, sort of thing. This is like on our priority list. This is really up high on the priority list. And if it takes extra money, if it takes extra effort, we want to know what that is so we can approve it. But at the same time, we're not interested in lowballing this thing in order to save a little capital. I think it's too critical for this artery to be open for us to even entertain such a thing.
I agree 100%. And I think that's something when we work, when we identify the engineering firm that we will utilize to design, which, more than likely, Choice One has got a head start on this. But we have and we will make it very clear to them that we need this designed with construction schedule as the driving factor, rather than ease of construction or any of that. Which to your point, I mean, there are some things that can be done up front potentially. If we're talking we can't get it out of the roadway as much because we've got other utilities or whatever, well, maybe we need to do some actual underground subsurface underground exploration and figure out, are they actually where we really think they are? So for $5,000-$10,000 to do some of that stuff to see if we can really push it, sort of thing. I totally understand that. Yep.
Any further comment? All right, so now you need to talk about level.
This one should be a little quicker. This is not, as I said, we've got a priority project and then we've got another project, a second project. We, again, as Councilman Bateman alluded to, we do utilize these opportunities to submit projects, to learn from them. So this next project, as you know, East Loveland Phase 1, it's wrapping up. The next phase is taking it from the north side of where we left off up to basically up to the Grailville proper. Well, I'm sorry, to Far Lane is where the next kind of terminus is. This project is much simpler. It's simply storm improvements and sidewalk. That's all it is. We have no other partners in this project at this point between MSD or Claremont County. So the way this project is laid out, obviously, the reason we're interested in this project is we have that pedestrian connectivity that we're always striving for here in the city, and this would get us to that point to get us up to Far Lane. But this project in total, the total project cost on this one is $1,034,718, and the only way we see this scoring well is to present it as a 50-50 grant and loan request from OPWC, which would be about $517,000 in grant, $517,000 in 0% loan, with a local match of $127,886. That's 11% of the total project cost. 11% is the bare minimum to score any points, and that's not even, quite frankly, it's not many points. When you get up in the 40-50% local match, you get additional points. But at this point, based on what we see for our funding and everything, we don't have a good way to raise that up anymore at this point. So we're kind of stuck at showing it as that 11% match right now. And then we will have, obviously, upfront engineering costs. We've identified those as $112,000 at this point, which is probably a little on the high side, but for a budget number for us going forward, that's what we have in the budget going forward. So with that said, I've outlined in your packet, you'll see kind of the fiscal impact. I won't run through that again. I've kind of gone over some of those numbers. But we obviously we would recommend council allow the city manager to enter into the application process that the city engineer, Kelsey Richards, is pulling together. It'll allow the city manager to basically sign that application and anything going forward. Obviously, with the caveat, as we heard here tonight, should any of the funding mechanisms change, meaning going from a grant to a loan, we would bring that back to council because that's different, and we would obviously bring that back to you should any of that change. But ultimately, we would recommend a passage of that resolution.
All right, thank you. Ms. Richard, do you have anything to add to any of what Mr. Weinich had to say?
I do not. He summed it up pretty well. But I agree. Priority one would be the West Loveland Phase 2. And then even if we do get additional comments from East Loveland and we do not get funding, that's still great comments, great feedback to move forward, even for additional projects in the future.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions, comments on this last part of Mr. Weinich's summary? All right, we'll go ahead and read the resolution.
Resolution authorizing the city engineer to prepare and submit application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission state capital improvement and or local transportation improvement programs to execute contracts as required.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Resolution 74 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
So I guess that's sort of a lead in to the amount of time that the three of us try to juggle and schedule projects, especially now when we're doing the budget cycle. And as council knows, they've been obviously extremely committed to connectivity. This in 2024, we just completed phase 2 of the Loveland Miamiville Road sidewalk project, and in 2025 we'll complete the final phase, which will take us up to Huntington, which is actually the longest of the 3 stretches, and we'll finalize it. I have met with Miami Township administration, made them aware of it. If they choose to pick this up and go forward, that's there certainly will be right up against their corporation limits. So one of the things that we learned, and again, not to harp on the WMR fund, but without the WMR fund being available and the city committed to not taking on any more water debt, we would not have been able to do the one we just completed, Loveland Miamiville Road Phase 2. And would not obviously be able to move forward with phase 3. These projects typically have a general fund aspect, a stormwater aspect, and a water aspect. As you recall, on phase 1, we had already done the water main replacement back in 2017. So that part was done, but the last 2 phases have needed water line being replaced. With that said, one of the things we learned, and proof positive was last year. In October of last year, we brought to you approval to move forward with the engineering for phase 2 in October. That allowed the project to go out to bid in February. Project was open for bids in March 26th. You all awarded a contract on April 9th, and the project was completed a couple weeks ago. So following that trend, we want to do it again for this final phase. And so by awarding this now, allowing us throughout the cold months to get all the engineering done, that'll also allow us in the early phases to really fine-tune our cost estimate for the budgeting for the CIP. And then if all goes well, just like last year, we'll be back here in March with awarding the bid and moving forward with that final phase of that project. And again, this is just one aspect of this city council's commitment to connectivity. East Loveland Phase 1, amongst all of that, if you look at that, you're starting to see the sidewalks come together. The city actually submitted 2 separate grants for sidewalks up State Route 48. One has been funded. We hope to hear about the second one very soon. Loveland Madeira Road, as Chris talked about, will have multiple phases and connectivity, namely High Ridge, for example, and the whole Stony Brook area will be included. So we're pretty excited that we're able to continue council's goal of continuing with connecting the city. City staff has been working on an internal study where we've identified all the sidewalks within the Claremont County part of the city. And we're trying to find those fine-tuned areas where we can make connectivity. Some of the lower cost projects where we can add some sidewalks here, which will connect other areas within the city where we already have that. If you recall, that was actually one of our summer interns did quite a bit of work on that. We hope to get that plan, start wrapping up that plan. With all that said and done, this legislation would include a cost of $29,700, which would largely be expended or be encumbered in 24. Won't count towards the 25 budget. And council's really, you can either approve, deny, you can push this off a little bit, but I think we've learned it behooves us to get moving on this project now to have as successful of a timing as we did in 24.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? All right, read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Choice One Engineering for professional design services, bidding, and construction supervision services in the furtherance of the Loveland-Miamiville Road Sidewalk Phase 3 project.
Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Resolution 75 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
So I think with the Oak Street project that we've been working on since January of 2020, I think it could go into maybe textbooks of the ultimate in cooperative development between a city and a private developer. And as you recall, you were just recently agreed to do some road widening as an assessment as part of the road program next year. And again, we feel like we've got a project that this community likes, is accepted, one that evolved over many years. Part of this project includes a 0.4781 acre parcel that will will go undeveloped. And I think that's even another item that was worked out through the process. And they have reached out to the city on our interest in potentially taking that property as a donation. This is not uncommon. We will typically do legislation research thanks to some stuff that Misty's got set up that makes it very easy for us to go back by searching a few keywords and find some. So we've been doing this similar type of action for many years. And back in the 80s, we're not going to include perpetual green space forever. It likely will be. It'll largely serve as a buffer. But when Chris and I were just sort of thinking about this property, it would have no utility purpose. Maybe someday in the future, if the Eads property gets developed, they may need some easement for a retaining wall or something like that. But for now, we just simply see the advantage in helping out the developer, accept this property under city ownership, and just let it serve as green space. This legislation that is written is somewhat generic in the sense that it would just simply allow Joe and I to move forward with the acceptance of this donation of this property together. And it adds to the city's extremely a large amount of green space that we have throughout the city. I think I once did a calculation. It's a significant amount per square footage for every resident. But more than anything, it helps out the developer. And I think if I was a resident in that area, some were very adamant that no structure would go on this place. I would see this as if I was a resident who's watched this project evolve. I think there would be a certain level of comfort to know that it's now going to be owned as a city, as even more assurance that it's not going to have a structure hanging over it. I've been up on the property. It's a little difficult to walk throughout it. They have extended the offer if the city is wants. They will do some drilling on it. There's not been any long history for this particular piece of property. There were some issues farther down. I spoke with Mr. Councilmember Ori, who has a wealth of knowledge about some of that. There were, a certain number of years ago, farther down on South 2nd, some sliding issue, but this parcel did not seem to be a part of that. If City Council wants, we can take them up on their offer to do some drilling, but based upon what we're seeing, there's no real imminent threat, especially since it will not have any structure or will have no utilities put onto it. What you see today is what the city would be taking.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, Mr. Ori?
Dave, I haven't walked this piece of property lately, but I think this is all, there's no maintenance will be done to it. It's all
No.
just trees and grass.
Yep.
And walking up the second street all the time, the trees are growing straight up.
Yep,
So
that's
when
always
I bought
good.
my property, which is the same type of land, I bought it because the trees are growing straight up. That means they're not, hill's not moving, so.
Yeah, I bet at worst the city will deal with an ash tree dropping here or there, but otherwise, I think this is a nice, this is a good take for the city, and it certainly works for the developer.
Did you have your hand up? No.
Not at the moment.
Okay, great. Mr. Bateman, I believe, was next.
Thank you. What was I going to? Mr. Kennedy, could you? I'm just curious. This, in order to collaborate and in the spirit of cooperation with this development, we went through the special planning district process. Does this parcel, even though it's splitting off from the original owner, still remain as an
Yes.
SPD?
It would still be zoned SPD. We wouldn't change the zoning.
Could that cause any issues or potential issues? Like you said, if somebody needed an easement or if somebody needed something with that property.
It would simply state that if anyone wanted to develop, they would have to meet the guidelines of the SPD, which was that this property would remain vacant. So from a development standpoint, it adds another layer of protection on it. As far as the city ever doing an easement, no, we would own it. If someday a retaining wall in that lower corner of this property was ever be needed, there wouldn't be any issues at all with us granting that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hart?
Just my 2 cents on the taking the developer up on the drilling or whatever precautionary measures that they're offering. I think it behooves us to take them up on that. I don't see a downside to gaining knowledge about the parcel that we're going to be taking over. Just my 2 cents.
Vice Mayor?
Is there any costs associated with accepting the donation?
No, outside of a little bit of Joe's time reviewing the deed and getting it recorded, minimal cost involved with, at this point we really had none. Joe's sort of a cursory review, but as far as reviewing the legislation, ultimately he'll be involved in the deed. I'm not saying he didn't do anything, Joe. I'm just saying not yet. So I'm trying to
Talked about.
Wasn't trying to be mean.
All right, anyone else? All right, want to read the resolution, please?
Resolution accepting the donation of .4781 acre tract of real property located on South 2nd Street.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Resolution 76 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
All right, Mr. Kennedy, Council Manic.
So just to go through a couple, then Chris is going to go for a couple. Develop a plan for the 2 blocks from the West Loveland. That's the study that council asked from West Loveland on at Level Madeira through downtown. That project is progressing. We're looking to advance the left turn signal onto North Carl Brown. They're going to be doing some calculations. We're working with Capital Electric. As we have mentioned, this is sort of the key to this whole downtown project, which is allowing people more options to how they come into downtown, eliminating this. Everyone turn left at Paxton's. We now have a new access off of 48. With Harrison being widened and the radius off of Carl Brown being improved, we want to encourage more people to come into town that way. A short blurb of a left turn. If it's as beneficial as we think it'll be as beneficial as it was when we added it at 5 points off of Broadway, we'll be moving forward with that. That may also be within my spending limit, so that might not have to circle back. But we've had a traffic engineer. There's more involved in that study, including what we've discussed, which is the railroad ultimately becoming only an in and not an out. Improvements to Greer Military to make it safer, acknowledging that will be a increase in as an exit. As far as secure funding to implement downtown district, I think downtown streetscape. I think Chris went into great detail with that. It was also included in an ARC application. As far as the Chestnut Street property, along with having that with a professional broker, the city has met with the Ohio Department of Development to see if there's any funding that may be available for us to sort of make that pad a little that property, a little bit more shovel ready. Sort of increase the value utilizing some state partners. We're working on that. Identify and plan for new development opportunities in Loveland. I think that you saw
The annexation of 48 acres has expanded the city's footprint along with development opportunities. Work to reach full development of Loveland Commerce Park. Hats off, really kudos to Eva Wisby, who's our economic development director. She worked very, very hard with Grunder Landscaping. What a wonderful addition to our Commerce Park, and never let anyone we all remember what that means to the city, that Commerce Park, and the likes of Mike's Car Wash and Keith McCluskey. So that great job by Eva putting that one together. I'm going to skip one because Chris will deal with that. Connectivity, I touched on that in my last memo. Don't need to go on any farther with that. My last one would simply be Nisbet Park. We hope Chris submitted an application for the seating area extension that you all approved. And we are working hard for what we hope is putting together a puzzle that will lead to the amphitheater going in Nisbet. If you recall, thanks to Gene Schmidt, right? To the state capital budget, we received a one-time grant of $250,000, which is nothing like any of us dealt with before. They just mailed us a check. Usually it's a real cumbersome process to draw that down. But
that was through the efforts of Representative Schmidt.
yeah, Representative Schmidt so secure that. So we have a fourth of the cost of an exaggerated cost of the amphitheater. When I say the exaggerated cost of the amphitheater is because we actually want to do a little bit more than just the amphitheater. We want to make some improvements to the restroom, the exterior of the restroom, and the river walk and so on and so forth. So what we're trying to do now is put this piece together for what would be really the not only the signature part of Nisbet, but complete the plan. And we're hoping that we'll be coming back to you with some really good news on Nisbet. Chris was going to touch on a couple projects too, and then that's it.
Yeah, I'll quick.
Well, first, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kennedy on what
I
he
get a
talked
lot of
about?
that during the day.
He doesn't want
What did
to.
he say?
Mr.
Sorry, did you
Wynant.
guys have any questions? I'm sorry. I thought I rambled.
You went through that too quick. Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry I rambled, but I didn't want to repeat myself.
Mayor, are we good? Okay.
Go right ahead.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Loveland Madeira Road, that whole corridor. Phase 3, the systemic phase, that's from Castle Skateland to Public Works or the Corp line. That is in preliminary right-of-way plan stage. So we're progressing through. Basically, we're right before stage 2 plans are finalized. So we're working through that. And then phase 1, stage 1 plans are currently being developed. That's from West Loveland to Valley View, which includes the roundabout. So those are the two. And then phase 2, obviously, we're still waiting on looking at funding and hoping to secure funding for phase 2. So that's kind of phase 2 is on hold for right now. And then the other one we've added to updates for PFAS. Just to give you a quick update of what's happened even in the last 2 weeks. We began scope and fee negotiations with AECOM. Those were done last week. We're anticipating the draft agreement has been sent over. We're waiting on the fee for it, broken down into all the different tasks that we've identified, which is going to be a typical engineering design where it's going to be 30, 60, 90, 100. So all those tasks and everything will be called out on what the fee is for each one. And then we're continuing our dialogue with state and federal regulators about funding. You know, it's a weekly thing that I'm talking to them about how we can keep this moving along. And hopefully set ourselves up for success. And then we are doing just the other update is we've got a roundtable hopefully coming up soon with the other Little Miami. I call them the Little Miami Aquifer Public Water Systems. I'm going to be having them come here, and we're going to talk about where everyone's at and what's going on in their neck of the woods, so that we can we're trying to create, in a sense, this unified front eventually with the regulators to help us out. So I'm kind of championing that up. So that's all.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions, comments on what Mr. Wynant said? Yes.
I would
go
just
ahead.
say that's the first I've heard of that. Using like a collective effort through the whole aquifer, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that makes a ton of sense. It's a nearly universal problem, and rather than staying on our own, that makes a ton of sense. Great job.
Thanks. Yeah, it'll help. It'll help when we get to the point of, because we're all in the same boat in this regionalization thing. If we can stand together and talk to the regulators and get them in the same room together, it certainly helps. So.
All right, any further comment? All right, thank you both. We do have a few announcements. This Saturday, depending on the weather, movies, there's a park double feature, Movies in the Park, The Jungle Book, and The Princess Bride. Movies begin at 7:30 p.m. in Phillips Park. October 5th, one-stop drop from 1 to 4 p.m. at the elementary school. That's the one on Level Madeira. A list of items that can be donated are on our website. And then also on October 5th, the Loveland Sims Fire Department Kid Fest is back in Nisbet Park this year, and that is from 2 to 4. Does anybody else have any other comments? Announcements? All right, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Goodyear?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.